Good morning, dear friends. I'm Dr. Mukesh Pareek, and I welcome you all to my YouTube channel, English for Net JRF by Mukesh Pareek. Today, my topic of discussion is irony. We all know that all my videos are an effort towards making my students feel that they have been fed with certain standard material so that they can feel enlightened and they can improve their knowledge. And in every video I keep abreast with the latest knowledge with my research, and I also keep it in mind that if you listen to a particular video or you watch it carefully, you will find that almost in every minute I consider that a single question of net will be solved. It means in a particular video you will find that I have been taking care of making my students feel comfortable in solving the questions also, though I'm not particularly taking into consideration these questions. In some of my videos I'm not taking questions directly from the past year papers, but feel free that when you listen to or watch it very carefully, any video of mine or any audio, you will be able to solve a question related to that particular topic. What is irony? If I simply ask this question to myself, then some of my students might be feeling, because I have experienced throughout these many years in my classroom teaching, that the moment I start teaching the word irony, or say casually I touch upon this topic, so students don't have an idea that what is the etymology, what is from where the word has come. So first of all, irony has not come from the word iron. It has nothing to do with iron. It is actually the etymology, the origin of the science of the origin of the word. If we go in depth of this, we see that the word irony has come from the Greek drama. There was a character. There was one character, Alazon, and there was one character, Eiron. So from that Eiron, the word irony has come. And what was the function of the character Eiron? Actually, Eiron is a clever kind of person in that drama who, by his wit repeatedly, triumphs over the boastful character Alazon. So there are two characters in Greek comedy, where one character is very boastful, and the other character, the boastful character, is called Alazon, and the someone who is not boastful, he undermines his knowledge, but is very playful and uses his wit to contradict the knowledge of, or the witticism of that Alazon, is called Eiron. So the word irony has come from the Greek word Eiron. Okay. Now, in literature, there are different kinds of ironies present. So I would try to touch upon almost 4 or 5 kinds of irony, so that you people can feel very free in understanding of the broad literature we have. So let me define it first of all, that it is a feigned ignorance in its broadest sense, is a rhetorical device, literary technique or event in which what appears on the surface to be the case differs radically from what is actually the case. Now let me directly come to different kinds of irony. Verbal irony. Let me talk about first of all verbal irony. It is a statement in which the meaning that a speaker employs is sharply different from the meaning that is ostensibly expressed. For example, suppose I say, "Oh, I'm not upset." Now look at my face. It seems, and suppose my tone, my expressions, they clearly reveal that I'm upset. But I say, "I'm not upset. I'm not upset. Oh, dear friend, I'm not sad." So these statements of mine are totally contradicting, what my real condition is. So these kind of statements are called verbal irony. Now, how to understand verbal irony in literature? Suppose it is drama, then you can easily understand, because drama we watch, we see, we directly witness a drama. So it's very clear, by looking at the facial expressions, and we can understand like whatever is being spoken is totally contradictory to the intention or the situation background. But in a literature where we are, suppose we are reading a poem, or we are reading a novel, or we are reading a drama, and suppose we don't go into the depth and detail of that drama or novel, then it is very important for us to understand verbal irony. For that, we need to complete it, and then we need to have a thorough understanding of the word irony, and the situation in which that particular word is used. For example, I remember one particular instance in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. You are aware about the whole story of Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony's speech is very famous, over the assassination of Caesar. And in public, he appears to praise the assassins, the killers, particularly Brutus. But that famous speech, he says, "But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man." So he's condemning Brutus, but on the surface level, it seems that he's praising him, while actually he's condemning. Then comes dramatic irony. It exploits the device of giving the spectator an item of information that at least one of the characters in the narrative is unaware of. In dramatic irony, audience know many things, but the characters don't know. And there, a kind of suspense is created. I'm sorry, I have used the wrong word, I think. Then the opposite of that suspense in the part of the dramatic personae, the people who are playing the role. So there also, a kind of irony is created. For example, throughout the play Othello, we see that Iago's machinations. We know that Desdemona is not at fault. But Othello does not know all these things. We all know about all these things, but Othello does not know. So that creates a kind of, a pleasure in the subconscious mind of ours, and we wait for, we wait for that moment when the protagonist will come to know. And so these are techniques through which, audience are made curious, like what will happen next. Okay. And there is another term, tragic irony. So far I have talked about verbal irony, I have talked about dramatic irony. Now there is a tragic irony that is also kind of dramatic irony, but used in the sense of tragedy, or in the plays or in the novels where tragedy occurs. For example, in tragic irony, I remember, because tragic irony is also termed cosmic irony, that I will just talk in 1 or 2 minutes after. In tragic irony, that something tragic is about to happen, and most of the characters are not aware. So it's a part of, I think, dramatic irony. Then there is situation irony. Situational irony is very important, as I'm making this video in this isolation period of at the backdrop of this corona virus outspread. And I'm very sad that as lockdown has been declared, but look at the situation after 2 days of, or exactly after 2 days, the whole labor class started migrating in the mass exodus. And the whole purpose of lockdown, why lockdown was imposed, so that we can really maintain public distance. And look at what happened altogether opposite, what was intended by the authorities. I hope you understand my point. I'm explaining situational irony, that we create a situation, or we see a situation that, certain situation was intended, and automatically something happens that, opposite happens. What was intended and opposite happens. The intention of the authorities was that people be inside their homes, being quarantined, isolated, so that we can save ourselves from the outspread of coronavirus. But altogether opposite happened, and I think lakhs of people came out of their houses, and that has made the whole world worried. So this is called situational irony. Another irony is cosmic irony, friends. Cosmic irony is irony of fate. To my mind, the novels of Thomas Hardy, particularly Tess of the Aberberleys, that comes to my mind. That in I would like to add one more term here. That There is a term, Deus ex machina. Some students call it machina, but it is machina. Deus means God, and machina means the intervention of gods. So there is a proverb in English that man proposes and God disposes. Now this is called cosmic irony, that God, divinity, has already set something for us, and we lesser human beings are unaware about that, and we keep planning something, and our plannings are they go awry, they go futile, they go in vain. So these kind of situations, whenever are shown in dramas or shown in novels, are called cosmic ironies. The expression cosmic irony or irony of fate stems from the notion that the gods or fates are amusing themselves. It's a Greek idea actually, by toying with the minds of mortals with deliberate ironic intent. Closely connected with situational irony, it arises from sharp contrast between the reality and human ideals, or between human intentions and actual results. The resulting situation is poignantly contrary to what was expected or intended. Cosmic irony is a term that is usually associated with Thomas Hardy, as I already have said. There is a strong feeling of a hostile Deus ex machina in Hardy's novel. For example, in Tess of the Aberberleys, there are several instances of this type of irony. I would like to cite one example. The line at the end of the novel, "Justice was done, and the president of the immortals, in Aeschylean phrase, had ended his sport with." This line has already appeared in the exam. I repeat it. Justice was done, and the president of the immortals, in Aeschylean phrase, had ended his sport with. Now, justice was done. I don't want to explain this particular line in detail because it will take a lot much time. I would like to pass on to the next irony, that is historical irony. Historical irony is when we see from our modern eyes and we look back towards history, there often appears sharp contrast between why historical figures see their world's future and what actually transpires. You must have read H.G. Wells' novel World War. In that, the First World War is fought. For what? To end the war. Now, look. He wrote this novel way back when First World War was not thought upon. And in that novel, people fight the First World War to end the wars. But we know, that whatever he said, we saw the Second World War, and I think we are the witnesses of the Third World War in a very subtle manner, a bio war, through this corona outspread. I'm not sure about all these stories where whether they are concocted stories, whether there is a hand of China in it or not. That is a matter of debate. But somewhere it is a war, and it can also be termed as cosmic, because I've said that historical irony is somewhere to do with cosmic irony, that we human beings have developed ourselves economically and forgot about nature, forgot about animals, forget about our own tuned life. We are the part of nature. But look at where we are now. So this is a combination of situational irony and historical irony. There is embedded a kind of situational irony. So another irony, let me move towards, that is comic irony. That is very important for us, from a literary point of view. Irony is often used in literature to produce a comic effect, in novels particularly. This may also be combined with satire. Through irony, the writer wants to satirize something. For instance, an author may state something as a well-known fact and then demonstrate through the narrative that the fact is untrue. I would like to read the first line of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which is considered to be the most important first line of any literary work. I read, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife." Now, in fact, it soon becomes clear that Austen means the opposite, because she says that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want. Want means here need of a wife. But what we see on the contrary throughout the novel, that all the women character are running behind, dying after rich husbands. Okay, so our we see that the mothers and the unmarried girls are always in search of and desperately on the lookout for a rich single man. And the last but not the least irony is Socratic irony. You must be aware about Socrates. He was I think mentor of Plato, and he used to pretend. There is a kind of teaching also in Socratic method. In teaching methods we use it, that we suppose I go in class, I'm a teacher, I'm expected to know all the answers, but mostly you must have seen that teachers go in the class and they ask a question. Chalo batao, when Pride and Prejudice was published. So students might think like, we have come into the class to know the answer, but you are asking us the question. I mean, you students think like they don't know, and teacher must be knowing, but instead teacher shows that he does not know and the student must be knowing. So that kind of ignorance practiced by a teacher. Socrates used to do that. Socrates I'm using to some of my Hindi medium students. Socrates means Sukrat, and so Socratic irony, I think you are able to understand that Socratic irony is a kind of dissimulation of ignorance practiced by Socrates as a means of confuting an adversary. Like the person in front of him, he tries to show that he must be knowing more and I must be knowing, or I might be knowing less. So this is called Socratic irony. Friends, this lecture was intended to improve your understanding of literature. I do not claim that I was 100% right in my approach, but I made certain PPTs which I mostly deliver to my students. But I like my students should write after watching this video on YouTube. They should write something if they want to ask me, and you can subscribe to my channel. I mostly don't ask anybody to subscribe, and that is the reason I think we have very less number of subscribers. But I would, and at the end of the video, in a very humble manner, I'm asking you to, if suppose you are watching it first time, then please subscribe to my channel, so that you can get access to, press the bell icon also, so that you can be intimated by the notifications. And at the end of this video, I would also like to say that apart from all these ironies, during my research, when I was doing my research on Canadian literature, I came across Linda Hutcheon. She's a postmodern writer, and there I saw that postmodern writers are also to do with irony in many sense, and there is a term post-irony also. So I'm not devoting much time in this particular video on these two types of ironies, that postmodern irony and post-irony. I would love, like, if you ask me questions, I would like to answer them, and if needs be, I'll make another video on the post-irony and irony, or the use of irony in postmodern era. Thank you very much. Namaskar.